The first time I saw the house, I didn't think much of it. The paint was chipped, the windows were foggy with age, and the porch steps creaked like they were whispering secrets to the wind. But my parents were giddy. It was the kind of place they'd dreamed of since forever, and to them, it was perfect. And for a while, I believed it too. I was 23 when the idea first came up. My father's back problems had gotten worse, and Mom's hours at the school cafeteria were cut. My older sister, Brielle, was 2 years into a soul-searching phase that looked a lot like yoga retreats and boutique lattes. Meanwhile, I was holding down 2 jobs, freelancing from home during the day and managing shifts at a bookstore at night. That's when Dad said it. "The bank won't approve us a loan, sweetheart. But with your credit and income, they'd greenlight the mortgage. Instantly, you'd be saving this family." That word, family, hit me like a soft dagger. Guilt and love mixed together, as it always had. We were close once, before things got skewed. So I agreed. My name was on every document. I went to every bank meeting, made every down payment, even paid the ridiculous processing fees. My parents promised they'd handle part of the monthly payments, but every time something went wrong, Dad's meds, Brielle's fender bender, Mom's dental bills, I was the one covering the shortfall. I told myself it was temporary, that once things got stable, we'd share responsibilities like adults, that this house would be ours, mine included. But the red flags came early. I was never consulted on renovations. Brielle picked out the new wallpaper. My room, the smallest, was painted last and turned into a guest storage space when I stayed, out late for work. Once, when I asked about splitting utilities evenly, Dad waved it off with a chuckle. "This is your investment, Maddie. We're just helping you protect it." I didn't realize then how literal that word, your, should have been. It started unraveling on a humid July evening. We were celebrating Brielle's 30th in the backyard. Fairy lights were strung like they were clinging to magic, and the garden I'd landscaped with my own hands had been transformed into an influencer-ready photo booth. Brielle was drunk on Chardonnay and attention. Her fiancé, Ethan, a financial planner with a perfectly curated Instagram life, was bragging to guests about their new future. "We'll probably remodel the kitchen next spring. You know, really make it ours." His words slipped through the laughter like a knife. "Ours?" I asked, freezing mid-step. He smiled. "Oh, didn't Bree tell you? Her name's on the deed now. Your folks made the transfer last month." The air left my lungs like a punch. "That's not possible," I whispered, more to myself than anyone. Walked inside, numb, straight to the drawer where I kept the original documents. The file folder was gone. I tore through the hallway cabinet. Nothing. Brielle's laughter drifted in through the open window like a taunt. I found the folder eventually in my parents' bedroom, bottom drawer, beneath a stack of old tax receipts. There it was, a new deed, processed, signed, and I wasn't on it. Brielle was. I didn't confront anyone that night. I went back to the party with a blank smile and a glass of water I didn't drink. They toasted to fresh beginnings, while I tried to not tremble. That night I barely slept. The next morning I pretended everything was normal. I made coffee, I folded laundry. I stared at Brielle's wedding magazine on the counter like it might bite me. When my parents got home from grocery shopping, I finally asked, "Why is Brielle's name on the deed?" They hesitated. Then Mom sat down, like she had rehearsed. The answer. "You're always so busy, Maddie. We didn't think you'd want to be tied to the house long term. So you just transferred ownership? It's still the family home, Dad added. Nothing's changing. You're still welcome here. Welcome. Like a guest. Like a visitor. Like someone with no stake, no name, no rights. That week, something in me changed. I stopped leaving my coffee mugs in the sink. I stopped fixing the Wi-Fi when it lagged. I stopped saying yes when Brielle asked for my opinion on centerpieces or honeymoon destinations. I began collecting every receipt I'd ever kept, from the inspection to the property taxes I'd quietly paid when Dad's pension check was short. I also reached out to a friend from college who now worked in real estate law. Just hypothetical questions, I told her. She asked me to come in the next day. Do you have a copy of your original mortgage agreement? Yes. Do you have proof of your payments? Every single one. Her eyebrows lifted. Then you have more power than they think you do. Maddie didn't scream. She didn't confront them with rage. That's what they expected. That's how they'd write her off again. As emotional, as dramatic, as ungrateful for everything they'd done. For her. Instead, she did what they'd never see coming. She got quiet, strategic, and that terrified them more than if she'd exploded. She spent the next 2 weeks pretending everything was fine. Did you get the electric bill? Yep, paid it online. Mind Venmoing Brielle for the groceries? Of course. On the outside, Maddie smiled, nodded, helped fold wedding favors, and even gave suggestions on wine pairings. But in the evenings, she sat with her laptop, cross-checking every single payment she'd ever made. Utilities, repairs, mortgage statements, even that emergency roof patch job they couldn't afford last winter. She had files. Bank statements, screenshots, physical receipts, everything. Her lawyer friend Dahlia was already impressed. Legally, this is an unjust enrichment case waiting to happen, she said over their lunch. They used your funds to improve a property you now hold no title to. That's actionable, Maddie. But I don't want to sue my parents, Maddie murmured. Not yet. Then what do you want? Maddie stirred her coffee slowly. I want them to know what it feels like to be cut out of something they built. The new lease. The final crack came when Brielle approached her in the kitchen one morning, all sunshine and syrupy sweetness. So, Ethan and I talked, she said, fiddling with her overpriced engagement ring, and we think it might be best if you move out after the wedding. Maddie blinked once. Why? I mean, it'll just be easier, you know, for privacy, space. Plus, Mom and Dad are already on board. We'll help you find a place. A place, Maddie repeated. Yeah, something more suited to you. You've been here for ages, Mads. You'll be free, finally. She said it like a gift, like a favor, like she was offering Maddie the keys to freedom, after stealing the house right out from under her. Maddie didn't reply. She just smiled. That night, she requested a formal meeting with her lawyer. I'm ready. The Trap Dahlia filed the first official notice within 48 hours, a claim for restitution and damages, a quiet subpoena to review the title transfer, a freeze on the house's equity, and, most powerfully, a financial affidavit showing Maddie had covered 92% of all payments associated with the house from the day of purchase. She didn't serve it to her family directly. She sent it to their lawyer, the one Dad had used to do the transfer behind her back. She knew they'd find out soon enough. And they did. The call came from her mother first. What is this letter we just got? A response. Maddie said calmly. to being erased. By the end of that week, the atmosphere in the house had shifted. Dad went silent at dinner. Mom kept trying to talk things out. And Brielle? She alternated between passive-aggressive texts and open tantrums. "Why are you doing this? This is tearing us apart." "You tore this apart," Maddie replied. "I'm just documenting it." Preparing for the next move, Maddie didn't move out. She started working from the living room. She played calm jazz in the mornings, lit candles they used to tell her were a fire hazard, and left post-it notes on things she had bought. The dishwasher, the microwave, the water heater, they were all in her name. She had receipts. Her parents began to feel it, the inconvenience of losing power without warning, of frozen bank accounts, of unexpected fees. Ethan sent her an email. Short, cold. "You're ruining Brielle's wedding." Maddie stared at it for a while before typing back. "She ruined my life savings. This seems like balance." The document was buried in the online portal of the mortgage bank, one of those dense 30-page PDFs no one reads unless they have a reason to. Maddie had a reason. She clicked through the indexed tabs, her heart pounding in her ears, until she reached what Dahlia had hinted at. Section 9.3, Ownership and Responsibility Clause. In cases where financial contributions are made by non-title holders with proof of payment, the lender reserves the right to recognize said contributor as a beneficial co-owner. Beneficial co-owner. It was just a phrase. But to Maddie, it was the weight of justice beginning to tip. She forwarded the document to Dahlia with all her receipts, organized meticulously. Within 2 hours, Dahlia called. "Maddie, you could file an emergency injunction. This clause alone can freeze all changes to the title. You'd have a solid case for ownership reversion, or at minimum, forced equity distribution." "Let's prepare both options," Maddie said, "and let's send it quietly." She didn't want chaos. Not yet. She wanted clarity. She wanted them to know that while they were playing games, she was writing the rules. The dinner table stormette was a rare Sunday evening where the whole family sat together. Brielle had brought over a mock-up of her wedding seating chart, babbling about peonies and song playlists like none of them were tangled in legal warfare. Maddie took a sip of water, waited for Brielle to finish her sentence, and then calmly said, "There's an emergency injunction hearing this Friday. I just thought you should know." Brielle's fork paused midair. "What?" "You might want to make sure you have legal counsel present. It's about the deed transfer. The one I never consented to." Her mother dropped her napkin. Her father went pale. "Maddie," he said slowly, "this doesn't have to go to court. We can sit down, all of us. You already sat down without me. Signed things. Took things. You decided that I was useful enough to pay, but not important enough to include." "You don't understand how hard things were," Mom whispered. "No," Maddie said softly. "You don't understand how easy you made it to steal from me." Brielle stormed out after 10 minutes, slammed the door like it meant something. Mom cried. Dad didn't speak. And Maddie? She cleaned her plate. She loaded the dishwasher. And she slept better than she had in years. The hidden loan 2 days before. "The hearing," Dahlia called again. "You need to sit down." "Why?" "We pulled the public financial disclosures. Your father took out a second mortgage 2 years ago, on that house, with Brielle as the co-signer. The money? Transferred to an LLC owned by Ethan." Maddie's lips went dry. "They used the house as collateral to fund Ethan's startup?" "Exactly. A wellness tech company that hasn't filed taxes." In over a year. It wasn't just betrayal. It was fraud. Can I use that in court? Absolutely. The silence. Before the courtroom, Maddie didn't tell anyone she knew. She didn't respond to her mother's increasingly desperate texts or her father's stammering voicemails. She didn't open the door when Brielle came pounding at midnight, in tears, yelling things like, "You're ruining the family. You don't know what you're doing." Oh, Maddie knew exactly what she was doing. She was no longer asking for space. She was reclaiming everything. The courtroom wasn't dramatic, just a modest civil litigation room on the 3rd floor of the county courthouse. But for Maddie, it might as well have been a coliseum. She wore a black blazer, clean, sharp lines, hair pulled back. A calm stillness radiated from her like armor. Her parents sat 2 rows behind the respondent table. Brielle had on a pale pink blouse, like sweetness could save her. Ethan didn't show. Classic. Maddie took her seat beside Dahlia, who greeted her with a single word. Ready? More than ever. Opening the floodgates. The judge was a silver-haired woman with tired eyes and a reputation for cutting through drama. Dahlia opened with facts. No emotion, no theatrics. Just a cold, factual breakdown. Maddie's name had been on the original loan application. She had provided 92% of all mortgage and maintenance-related payments. She had bank statements, proof of wire transfers, home repair invoices. Then came the fraudulent deed transfer, initiated without her knowledge, signed during a time her father had medical power of attorney privileges he abused. And finally, the second mortgage, with Brielle as co-signer, funneled into an LLC that had no business filings, no employees, and no paper trail, except to Ethan. Maddie sat motionless, watching her family's faces twitch as each truth was laid bare in sterile legal language. When it came time for Brielle's attorney to speak, his entire defense was centered on family intention. There was never any plan to deceive. The house was always meant to be a shared family asset. Ms. Maddie volunteered these payments. She cannot now demand compensation for gifts given in good faith. The judge raised an eyebrow. Gifts? 92% of a property paid for over 3 years is not a birthday card, counselor. The moment. Then the judge turned to Maddie. Would you like to speak? She didn't hesitate. For 3 years, I worked double shifts. I skipped vacations, delayed grad school, and gave up my savings because I believed I was helping my family build something that belonged to all of us. I lived in the smallest room. I ate leftovers. I kept my head down. And when it was finally time to enjoy the fruit of those sacrifices, they decided I wasn't worth including. They signed my name away while I was still paying the bills. They borrowed against my labor and called it love. Silence. Even the clerk had stopped typing. This isn't about revenge, Maddie finished. It's about respect. Something I didn't realize I deserved until they took everything. The judge's order. The judge took a recess. 15 minutes. When she returned, her decision was clear. Pending final review, this court finds that the transfer of the deed was executed under ethically questionable and legally unstable conditions. The plaintiff, Madeline Quinn, is hereby reinstated as a 50% legal owner of the property and granted temporary financial authority over any further transactions or equity changes. Additionally, this court issues a freeze on the second mortgage and all assets linked to the named LLC pending further fraud investigation. Brielle let out a strangled gasp. Her mother whimpered. Her father just buried his face in his hands. And Maddie? She nodded once. Not smug, not satisfied, just grounded. Finally. Back home. That night, Maddie returned to the house. Her house. She walked in calmly as her parents sat in the dimly lit living room. No one spoke until her father finally whispered, "Why couldn't you just talk to us?" She stared at him, then quietly said, "I did. You just weren't listening." Then she turned, walked upstairs, and closed her door. Not softly, with a finality that felt earned. The silence in the house after the court hearing was thicker than the walls. Maddie could hear her mother crying in the kitchen, her father sighing into the empty television screen, and Brielle stomping through the halls like a ghost locked out of her own fantasy. But none of it touched her anymore. For the first time in her life, Maddie had something they couldn't take back. Leverage, power, proof. The offer it came on a Thursday afternoon in a cream-colored envelope slipped under her door. A handwritten note from her father. "We'd like to talk. About a resolution. Maybe selling the house and splitting it fairly." Fairly. That word almost made her laugh. Instead, she left the note on the kitchen counter with a post-it stuck to it. "My lawyer will be in touch." The shift by the end of the month, Dahlia had arranged everything. A full property buyout, funded by Maddie's now-released equity rights, and her share of the frozen assets under investigation. A court-ordered lien placed on Ethan's LLC, pending. Further fraud charges, which would later result in a civil lawsuit for damages. Maddie's name was now protected. A clean severance. Maddie would pay a remaining portion to become sole legal owner of the property. The rest? Eviction notices. Filed and honored, her parents left first. No words. Just silence and cardboard boxes. Brielle refused to leave, until the sheriff escorted her out 3 weeks later. "You'll regret this," she spat as she passed Maddie on the porch. Maddie didn't answer. She just closed the door, behind her, then turned the lock gently. Click. New walls, same bones. The house was quiet now. Not in a hollow way, but in a settled, breathing way. The kind of quiet that follows healing. Maddie renovated slowly, not out of necessity, but ceremony. She repainted every room, tore out the wallpaper Brielle had chosen, replaced the creaky floors in the hall with warm oak. The spare bedroom became her writing studio. She didn't rush the changes. She earned them. Every nail, every inch, every wall. The letter 6. Months later, a letter arrived from her mother. Handwritten, apologetic, desperate. "We were wrong. We miss you. You didn't deserve what we did. Please call." She stared at it for a long time, then folded it neatly, placed it in a drawer. Did she miss them? Yes. But forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting. The closing scene. One evening, Maddie sat on the porch, the one with the creaky step she'd finally fixed. A glass of wine in hand, jazz drifting softly from inside. She watched the sunset stretch golden fingers across the lawn she mowed herself now. No more Brielle, no more lies, just her, just peace. And in that quiet, Maddie finally smiled. Not the polite one, not the hollow one, a real smile.